Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have a great broadcast for you today. I will be covering the main events of the week. It was quite an eventful week, so there's a lot to talk about. But first, I would implore everyone, please do hit the like button and also subscribe. YouTube is not a huge fan of what we do here. They find what we do violent, so they're not big fans of promoting our work. So your engagement really matters. We really appreciate it a lot, and it helps us so much. So thanks for doing all that stuff. Please do check out our Twitter and our Blue Sky. That's where we do most of our social media posts. And please do promote us on other platforms where we're not so active. Thank you. And check out Tochnyi.info. That's our website. It's got a lot of great research and articles and interactive maps and other information about our various research projects at Tochnyi. So, as I mentioned, I will be covering the news. After that, Germany to Ukraine will give his report as per usual. Then we will have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, Colby is able to join us this week, which is great. We should have a more diverse set of answers for your questions. So feel free at any point during the show to type questions in chat, and we will do our best during the show to later on answer them. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll go ahead and jump into the news. These are the main headlines as of February 2nd, 2025. During the night of January 25th, multiple explosions took place in Russia's Ryazan Oblast, an event that Russian authorities attributed to a drone assault on a regional refinery. According to reports from Russian Telegram channels and local officials, the incident occurred around 1 a.m. in the village of Dyadkova. Residents in the area reported hearing a sequence of blasts, estimating that approximately 10 explosions took place. Pavel Malkov, the governor of the oblast, asserted that the attack was neutralized by the country's air defense system. However, videos circulating on social media depict a significant blaze at the refinery, raising questions about the extent of the damage and the effectiveness of the defensive response. In the early hours of January 31st, an oil refinery in Volgograd, Russia, was struck by drones, resulting in a fire. Reports of the incident came from the region's governor, as well as various Ukrainian and Russian Telegram channels. Local accounts indicate that the attack occurred around 4 a.m., shortly after an air raid warning was issued in the Volgograd region due to the risk of unmanned aerial vehicles. Residents in the southern part of the city reported hearing explosions, with particular mention from local social media groups. During the night, the Supernova Plus Telegram channel shared multiple videos, one of which captured the sound of a drone overhead followed by an explosion. In another recording, a local resident provided his precise location, which was approximately 1.5 kilometers from the refinery's boundary. These videos and images circulating online suggest that the fire broke out at the refinery. Later, the governor of Volgograd Oblast, Andrei Bocharov, acknowledged that a drone attack had allegedly led to the blaze, but did not disclose the exact site of the incident. He stated that a total of 8 drones had been intercepted in the region, and one of them caused a fire within the refinery complex, which he said had been brought under control. In the early hours of the morning, Ukrainian drones targeted the Lukoil refinery in Kyiv, Russia, the country's 4th largest refinery. The attack took place around 1 a.m. and was reported by multiple Russian Telegram channels, with local residents describing 3 explosions and a subsequent fire at the facility. Situated approximately 800 kilometers from Ukraine's border, the Kyiv refinery has an annual processing capacity of 17 million tons of crude oil. While Russian officials attributed the damage to debris from intercepted drones, the reports of 3 distinct explosions from residents suggest direct impacts on the facility. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, air defense systems intercepted 104 drones that night. However, sources from Ukraine's main intelligence directorate stated that all 4 drones launched at the facility struck their intended target and caused significant damage to the refinery. North Korean troops stationed in Russia were withdrawn from the front lines in the partially occupied Kursk region after suffering substantial casualties, according to a report by the New York Times on Thursday, which cited unnamed Ukrainian and U.S. officials. This follows previous assessments by Western intelligence indicating that out of the estimated 11,000 North Korean troops sent to Russia in late 2024, approximately 4,000 had either been killed, wounded, captured, or declared missing. U.S. officials speculate that these troops may now be undergoing further training or that the Russian military planners are considering alternative deployment strategies to reduce their vulnerability. Despite being among Pyongyang's most highly trained special operations forces, these soldiers were reportedly used in standard infantry roles, exposing them to Ukrainian artillery and landmines in the Kursk region. Russia is expected to receive additional reinforcements from North Korea in the coming months, with a senior U.S. official telling the New York Times last week that further deployments could arrive within around 2 months. On January 29th, Ukraine's military intelligence agency launched a cyber operation against Russian energy giants Gazprom and Gazprom Neft, severely disrupting their digital infrastructure. The cyber specialists executed a large-scale distributed denial-of-service attack, crippling key online services. The operation coincided with the anniversary of the Battle of Kruty, a historic event in 1918 when Ukrainian cadets and volunteers mounted a desperate defense against the Bolshevik advance on Kyiv. Facing an overwhelming force of around 5,000 Bolsheviks, a small battalion of approximately 500 young students dug trenches near the city and engaged in a fierce but ultimately outmatched battle. In a statement, HOR connected the cyber operation to the historic resistance, describing the attack as a symbolic act of defiance. The targeted systems include essential digital platforms, leaving customers unable to access their accounts, make fuel payments, or use other online services as of January 28th. Despite the widespread outages, Gazprom downplayed the incident, attributing issues to a, quote, temporary technical glitch, while providing no further details or a timeframe for resolution. On January 30th, multiple Ukrainian sources reported that Ukraine's armed forces had successfully incorporated full Fab 250-kilogram aerial bombs into their drone operations, using them for precise attacks on Russian targets in the Bryansk Oblast. Photographic evidence shared on Telegram showed a Fab 250M54, a high-explosive bomb mounted on a drone, alongside a 120mm mortar shell for scale. Reports from Militarny indicated that in the early hours of January 30th, the 14th Regiment launched at least one modified drone to strike Novosibirsk oil pumping station on the Druzhba pipeline in Bryansk Oblast. The drone carried the Fab 250M54 bomb along with two smaller munitions resembling artillery shells. The fate of the aircraft after the strike remains unknown, and by 1 p.m., Russian sources had not released any images confirming its destruction. In November, video footage from Dagestan, Russia showed an A-22 Foxbat light aircraft, which should be capable of carrying the bombs, converted into UAVs. However, these drones were designed for long-range missions and don't have a return capability, leaving it uncertain whether they could actually release bombs and return to base like these Ukrainian drones can. Also, Ukrainian forces are actively working on countermeasures to intercept Russian drones that operate via fiber optic cables. Recently, Robert Brovdy, the commander of Maidar's Birds Regiment, shared a video demonstrating one such successful interception. The introduction of fiber optic controlled drones is a significant evolution in the ongoing drone warfare. Unlike traditional drones, they are immune to electronic warfare countermeasures and very difficult to detect. In response, Ukrainian technology firms are rapidly developing strategies to neutralize their advantages, while also experimenting with their own fiber optic technologies. Brovdy explained that his regiment began employing a mobile radar system to detect the advanced Russian drones. Since fiber optic communication eliminates the need for radio signals, the drones are not susceptible to jamming and remain undetectable by standard electronic warfare methods. Instead, they can only be identified through visual confirmation or conventional radar designed to track aircraft and missiles. The regiment has adapted a compact radar system for this purpose. In the video, a Russian kamikaze drone carrying an anti-tank warhead repurposed from a handheld grenade launcher is seen flying at low altitude over a landing zone. Upon detection by mobile radar, Ukrainian forces deployed a drone on standby, which successfully intercepted the Russian aircraft. Brovdy advocated for the widespread deployment of mobile radar systems every 2 to 4 kilometers along the front line, paired with dedicated FPV drone units to counteract enemy drones detected by the radars. While the exact type of radar remains undisclosed, there is speculation that it's probably a microwave radar system. These radars are effective in detecting slow-moving, small aerial targets, but have a relatively short range, leaving operators with limited reaction time. Russia intends to enlist at least 126,000 soldiers in 2025 from what it refers to as the, quote, special contingent to compensate for battlefield losses in its ongoing war. This group includes convicted prisoners, individuals under criminal investigation, and those facing financial troubles such as loan defaults. According to Ukraine's defense intelligence, Moscow has set a goal of recruiting at least 10,000 soldiers each month from this category to sustain its current military operations. Ukrainian intelligence also estimates that Russia plans to mobilize a total of at least 280,000 troops throughout 2025 to replenish its depleted forces. Up next, we have economy and aid. Sweden has announced its most extensive military aid package to Ukraine since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, with a total value exceeding $1.23 billion. This marks the 18th military assistance package Sweden has provided since the full-scale invasion and brings its total contributions to $5.6 billion. The aid package consists of military equipment sourced from both Swedish and international defense manufacturers. Key components include 146 trucks, 16 combat boats, and 23 naval combat modules. Ukraine will also receive 1 million rounds of 12.7mm ammunition, as well as 1,500 TOW anti-tank missiles, as well as 200 other anti-tank weapons. Gustav guns, I hope. The package also provides essential gear for soldiers and units, along with protective equipment against chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. Beyond hardware, Sweden is investing in training programs for Ukrainian forces. This includes the continued participation in Operation Interflex, which delivers basic military training and funding for instructional initiatives throughout 2025 in the UK. $178 million from the package will be dedicated to supporting Ukraine's domestic weapons production, following a model similar to Denmark's. Of that amount, $90 million will be allocated specifically for the procurement of long-range missiles and drones. The Dutch Air Force will assist in training 26 Ukrainian military personnel as senior F-16 technicians. This was announced by the Dutch Ministry of Defense following discussions with Ukrainian and Dutch defense officials. The training is set to continue until the end of April and will take place at an undisclosed airbase. While the Netherlands has initiated the program, the Dutch military itself will not be directly involved in the instruction process. Senior technicians play a crucial role in ensuring the operational readiness of F-16 fighter jets. Their responsibilities include overseeing aircraft serviceability, maintaining combat readiness, ensuring that all necessary checks are performed before flight, and training subordinate technical crew members and maintenance procedures. They are also responsible for the security of classified components installed on the aircraft, the proper handling of assigned tools and equipment, and the safe keeping of onboard munitions. Senior technicians conduct post-flight inspections, accept aircraft upon their return, and report directly to the head of technical and operational units while supervising their maintenance teams. During a visit to the Netherlands, Ukraine's Defense Minister Rustam Umerov confirmed that a batch of F-16 fighter jets would be transferred from the Netherlands to Ukraine in 2025. The first group of aircraft were delivered in October of 2024. On January 31st, it was confirmed that Finland had delivered its 27th military aid package to Ukraine, valued at €200 million. Finnish Defense Minister Antti Hakkinen announced the decision on social media and emphasized that the package was developed in close coordination with Ukrainian officials. The latest contribution puts Finland's total military support at €2.5 billion. In addition to direct military assistance, Finland has committed to expanding its defense production capabilities by constructing a major explosives manufacturing facility. The new plant, which will be located in the city of Pori, is an investment which exceeds €200 million. Hakkinen emphasized that the decision to build the factory aligns with Finland's strategy to strengthen its domestic defense industry and enhance its supply security. The facility will address the growing shortage of explosives in Europe, a bottleneck that's currently affecting the production of artillery and mortar ammunition. Once operational, the plant will be one of only 2 TNT production sites in the European Union, alongside an existing facility in Poland. The United States has transferred approximately 90 Patriot air defense interceptors from storage in Israel to Poland, where they will be delivered to Ukraine, according to sources cited by Axios. The move is part of ongoing efforts by the Pentagon to strengthen Ukraine's air defense systems as it faces continued Russian attacks on critical infrastructure. The Patriot air defense system was decommissioned by the Israeli Air Force in April 2023, more than 30 years after it was originally deployed during the Gulf War. As Israel now relies on more advanced air defense systems such as Iron Dome, the Patriot system has been placed in storage or used for training. After the system's retirement, Ukrainian officials initiated discussions with both the U.S. and Israel, proposing that the missiles be returned to the U.S. for refurbishment and eventual delivery to Ukraine. However, it was stated that Israel was initially hesitant, reportedly delaying a decision over concerns that Russia might retaliate by increasing military support to Iran. According to an unnamed Ukrainian official, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu initially avoided engaging in discussions on the proposal for several weeks. The official further claimed that Netanyahu ultimately approved the transfer in late September, only after attempting to negotiate a separate matter involving an annual pilgrimage of ultra-Orthodox Israelis to Uman, Ukraine. The Israeli government has, of course, denied any connection between the two issues. The Czech government is advancing a new initiative to secure artillery ammunition for Ukraine, urging support from other European Union member states as the war with Russia continues. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipovsky emphasized that the initiative's success hinges on political commitments from EU partners. Speaking to a German publication, he noted that if EU nations contribute again, the program could significantly aid Ukraine's war effort. He also mentioned that funding options for the new procurement effort are currently under review, with the ultimate goal of maximizing the number of shells acquired. The Czech initiative already demonstrated considerable success. By the end of 2024, Ukraine's deputy foreign minister reported that 520,000 rounds of 155mm shells had been delivered, which fulfilled 80% of the program's target. Stricter U.S. financial sanctions, which began impacting Russia's Gazprom bank at the end of 2024 and expanded into 2025 to include dozens of intermediary companies involved in circumventing restrictions, have created new obstacles for Russian trade payments to China. According to Bloomberg, the financial measures have led to increased scrutiny by Chinese banks, particularly in transactions conducted in yuan. Senior executives from two Russian raw materials exporters reported that cross-border payments are again facing difficulties as Chinese financial institutions reassess their risk exposure. Concerns amongst Chinese banks stem from recent U.S. actions, with institutions taking additional time to analyze transactions before processing them. Challenges have arisen following the U.S. Treasury Department's expanded sanctions, which now include 50 Russian banks and approximately 100 companies accused of violating restrictions, including some based in China. Kyrgyzstan's OJSC Karamet Bank has been subjected to blocking sanctions due to its role in facilitating foreign currency transactions for Russia's Promsvyaz Bank, PJSC, a state-owned institution heavily involved in the Russian defense sector. The tightening of Western sanctions has contributed to a decline in Russian exports as of 2024. Between October and December, total export revenue fell to $99.6 billion, marking a 7% decrease compared to the same period the previous year. Talks between Russia and Turkey regarding the reinstatement of the Russian Mir payment system have concluded without any progress, according to the Russian ambassador to Ankara. In an interview with RIA Novosti, a Kremlin-aligned news agency, Erkov stated that there is no longer any prospects for reactivating the system in Turkey and advised Russian travelers to rely on cash instead. Discussions about restoring the payment system in Turkey had been stalled for months. In September 2024, Turkish authorities publicly stated that there were no ongoing negotiations on the matter. Since the beginning of 2024, Turkish banks have systematically declined to process transactions linked to Russia, a trend that has solidified over the last year. By early autumn, nearly all Turkish financial institutions have ceased servicing payment connected to Russia and Belarus, despite efforts by Moscow to reach some kind of compromise. The banking restrictions have made financial transactions for Russian businesses and travelers in Turkey more complicated. Kazakhstan has initiated its first oil shipment from the Kashagan oil field to Azerbaijan for further transport via the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan BTC pipeline. According to the New Voice publication, this development was announced by Kazakhstan's national oil and gas company, Kazmunaygas (KMG), marking a significant step in the country's strategy to reduce reliance on Russian transit routes. The shipment, carried by the Kazakh tanker Taraz, departed from the port of Aktau and is en route to Baku. Upon arrival, the oil will be transferred to the BTC pipe system, which transports crude oil to the Mediterranean Sea. The shift is part of Kazakhstan's broader efforts to diversify its export routes, with expectations that oil shipments to Russian pipelines will decrease by over 80%. Kazakhstan began utilizing the pipeline for oil transport last year after KMG and Azerbaijan's state-owned oil company SOCAR signed an agreement to move 1.5 million tons of Kazakh oil annually through the pipeline. In March 2024, the two companies reached a deal to progressively increase this volume to 2.2 million tons per year. As part of this transition, Kazakhstan has also conducted a trial shipment of Kashagan oil via the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan, exploring alternative export methods. In November 2024, Kazakhstan's energy minister indicated that the country is considering a significant expansion of its oil exports via the BTC pipeline, with a potential increase to 20 million tons annually. The Kashagan oil field, located in the northern Caspian Sea near Atiru, ranks as one of the most significant petroleum discoveries in recent decades, holding an estimated 9 to 13 million barrels of oil reserves. Commercial extraction, which relies on artificial islands to facilitate production, began in late 2016. And now we have international relations. On January 29th, Georgia announced withdrawal of its delegation from the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, or PACE, following the adoption of a resolution urging the country to organize new parliamentary elections. The controversy stems from Georgia's parliamentary elections in the fall of 2024, which led to significant political unrest and mass protests. The ruling Georgian Dream Party, which is often criticized for its pro-Russian stance, claimed an overwhelming victory. However, opposition groups and international observers reported extensive electoral fraud, casting doubt on the legitimacy of the results. PACE formally adopted a resolution on January 29th calling on the Georgian government to conduct fresh parliamentary elections that adhere to democratic principles. Theodoros Rousopoulos, the president of the assembly, stated that the resolution included provisions for reviewing and potentially revoking the credentials of the Georgian delegates if the government failed to comply. Although PACE had previously ratified Georgia's delegation, certain members had already faced restrictions due to concerns over democratic regression in the country. The newly passed resolution introduces additional conditions that must be met before Georgia's credentials can be ratified in the future. Beyond calling for new elections, the resolution demands the release of all individuals detained for political reasons and urges the Georgian government to take concrete steps towards resuming its integration into the European Union. Following the resolution's adoption, Georgia formally declared its decision to pull its representatives from PACE in protest. Russia has begun withdrawing its military equipment from a base in Tartus, Syria, its only naval base in the Mediterranean. Satellite images published by journalist Mark Krutov reveal that 2 Russian cargo ships, Sparta and Sparta II, have been actively transporting military assets out of the port. Following the departure of Sparta II, most of the containers and equipment previously visible at the dock have disappeared. The remaining assets are now being loaded onto the Sparta. Norwegian naval analyst Tor R.A. Iverson noted that a Russian Grachonok-class anti-sabotage vessel is providing security for the operation. The withdrawal follows reports on January 21st that the Syrian port had canceled a 49-year investment agreement with Russia's Transgas. This decision came after Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad was ousted by rebels from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. In the aftermath, cargo ships associated with the Russian Defense Ministry were granted access to the port, whereas prior to Assad's overthrow, Russian naval and transport vessels had been denied entry, forcing them to remain offshore. Several Russian warships continued to be stationed near Tartus. Also, a Russian delegation arrived in Damascus on January 28th, marking the first official visit by Russian officials to Syria since the December ousting of Bashar al-Assad. The delegation includes Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov and Alexander Lavrentiev, the Russian president's special envoy for Syria. While Russian state media did not disclose the exact purpose of the visit, the semi-official Syrian newspaper Al-Watan reported that the officials were scheduled to meet with Ahmad al-Shara, the country's new de facto leader, as well as Syria's newly appointed foreign minister. The Security Service of Ukraine has launched a criminal investigation into the unauthorized disclosure of classified information following the publication of an article by Ukrainska Pravda. The report cited statements allegedly made by Kirill Budnov, the head of Ukraine's defense intelligence, during a closed parliamentary session at the Verkhovna Rada. According to the SSU, the case was formally initiated on January 28th and focuses on the individuals who had direct access to the classified discussions during the parliamentary meeting. The controversy stems from an article published on January 27th titled Trump War Elections, What Will Shape the New Season in Ukrainian Politics. The article referenced remarks allegedly made by Budnov during a confidential session involving parliamentary faction leaders and military officials. According to an anonymous source present at the meeting, Budnov was asked about Ukraine's remaining time to act, and the source claimed that Budnov, in his characteristic calm manner, responded that if no serious negotiations to end the war occurred by summer, developments could emerge that would pose an existential threat to Ukraine. Following the publication, Ukraine's defense intelligence denied that Budanov made any statement suggesting a direct threat to the country's survival. The investigation by the SSU now seeks to determine who leaked the classified discussion to the media. Ukraine has officially attained associate membership in the Confédération Intérêt des Officiers de Réserve, or CIOR, the largest organization of reserve officers within NATO. The announcement was made at a NATO headquarters in Brussels and was also made by Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. The Deputy Minister of Defense, Brigadier General of Justice Serhiy Melnik, described this as a long overdue milestone, emphasizing that Ukraine should have joined the organization 23 years ago. He highlighted that this membership presents new opportunities, particularly in strengthening the country's reserve forces and expanding its cooperation further with NATO. CIOR President Yorn Buo welcomed Ukraine into the organization and underscored the value of knowledge sharing between reservists from NATO member states and partner nations. He expressed confidence that Ukrainian reservists will bring valuable insights and that mutual exchanges will enhance collective security and reinforce the principles of freedom. And my last two items this week, I guess one's a hit and one's a miss. Norwegian authorities announced on Friday that they released a Russian crude cargo ship that had been seized on suspicion of involvement in damage to a fiber optic cable in the Baltic Sea. After a thorough investigation, police stated that they found no evidence linking the vessel to the incident. The vessel, called the Silver Dania, which sails under the Norwegian flag, was en route between St. Petersburg and Murmansk when it was intercepted by a Norwegian Coast Guard vessel off the coast of Tromsø late on Thursday. The seizure followed reports from Sweden and Latvia that a fiber optic cable connecting Sweden's Gotland Island to the Latvian city of Ventspils had been damaged. Despite initial suspicions, Norwegian police attorney Ronny Jorgensen confirmed that the investigation yielded no findings implicating the ship and the cable damage. Authorities will continue their inquiries, but they see no reason to keep the vessel in Tromsø. Also, however, Swedish authorities have detained a Malta-flagged cargo vessel and launched an investigation into suspected, quote, aggravated sabotage following damage to an undersea fiber optic cable in the Baltic Sea on January 26th. The Swedish Coast Guard confirmed to the Swedish publication Expressen that the vessel in question, the Vejan, is currently anchored near the Swedish naval port of Karlskrona. According to vessel finder data cited by AP, the ship had recently departed from the Russian port of Ust-Luga and was moving between Gotland and Latvia when the disruption occurred. Swedish senior prosecutor Mats Lundqvist stated that multiple agencies, including the National Police Operations Department and the Coast Guard, as well as the armed forces, are collaborating on the investigation. The damage was first detected when Latvia's state-run radio and TV center experienced disruptions in data transmission along the fiber optic cable linking Ventspils to Sweden's Gotland Island. In response, the Latvian Navy deployed patrol boats to examine vessels in the vicinity. According to Reuters, marine traffic data confirmed that the Vejan passed over the cable at 0:45 GMT on January 26 before being escorted to Swedish waters by Swedish Coast Guard vessels. NATO has announced that it recently mobilized ships and aircraft under its recently established Baltic Sentry mission to examine the incident. The damaged fiber optic cable, located at depths exceeding 50 meters, is expected to be repaired within weeks, unlike gas pipelines and power cables, which typically require several months for restoration. In the meantime, Latvia's state-run radio and TV center has redirected its operations through an alternative data transmission channel. And that's it for the news this week. We will now move to the next segment.
Yeah, hello guys, that would be me. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. And this week I have prepared a lot of moving images for the news segment, and I also have a video of the week just for Joseph. Therefore, I really hope that you guys are also, of course, very happy about this. We are starting with a donation of 10 backhoe loaders financed by the German Foreign Office to the National Guard of Ukraine, which were made public on Wednesday. They are intended for engineering and stabilization work in the rear positions and to assist citizens in the front line and deoccupied territories. On Thursday, the German Federal City Organization THW has donated an Iveco daily truck to the Kyiv district administration of Zaporizhia. The vehicle will help to respond more quickly to Russian shelling in Zaporizhia and offers plenty of space for cargo transport. On the same day, they also handed over additional assistance in the form of 5 Volkswagen Crafter vans and a backhoe loader funded by the German government to the Vilnyansk and Komishivka communities in the Zaporizhia Oblast, to utility companies in the region and the Zaporizhia Regional Clinical Hospital. Again on Thursday, an EU delegation handed over 5 Volkswagen Amarok off-road vehicles, which were co-financed by the German government, to the State Special Transport Service. The vehicles will be used by their energy units to transport equipment and stuff to restore electrical networks and civilian infrastructure damaged by Russian attacks. And last but not least, on Friday, 5 Volkswagen Crafter vans financed by the German government were handed over to the Kyiv Oblast. It was not shared for what they are now being used, but I assume for small logistical tasks or similar. These vans are now being distributed to the Kupiansk, Pisoshyn, and Balaklaya Homadas. And as promised, due to the severe threats and pressure from Joseph, I this time even have a video of the week for you. Special thanks to Jay, who mentioned this video to me since he saw how I am in really, really desperate need. This video shows Ukrainian soldiers of the 1st Assault Battalion using a Danish-made RQ-35 Hydrogen UAV, of which Germany has so far delivered nearly 450 to Ukraine. To scout the movements and location of a Russian BM-21 Grad MLRS. As it can be seen later in the video, the MLRS was hit by an M4 to HIMARS missile, according to the battalion. And yeah, that's it for my segment. So back to you, Joseph.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, that was definitely, I think, one of my favorite segments of yours. There were lots of videos, which was fun, and you had to pronounce a lot of difficult Ukrainian place names, which is also fun. So
I'm really bad at
yeah, I
this.
think that was fun on both counts for me. Yeah, so I guess like this is maybe a segment I'm just gonna call like extra news bits. Because there's things I wind up cutting a lot of stuff, and it feels weird to just not mention it. So the first thing is like Budanov denials. There's been some extra Budanov denials since I wrote my news report, and I just wanted to mention them. The first is the North Korea stuff. You basically couldn't read the news about Ukraine this week without hearing it mentioned that, you know, that there was this withdrawal. If I remember, there was maybe mention of some special forces commander saying something about this. I don't know the whole story, but the point is, it maybe is most likely it was probably overblown by the media. Budanov is saying as much. I'm not suggesting that like it's true because Budanov said it, but you know, my own instinct was that it seems like they were making a huge deal out of this, and it's not super well sourced. It's like a couple comments from one publication from some anonymous sources. So, yeah, Budanov basically straight up denied that that was true and said it's not. So, you know, take that for what you will. The other Budanov denial, which is kind of a rabbit hole I didn't want to go down, but I feel like we kind of need to at this point if there's kind of official acknowledgement of it, is the Georgian Legion coup attempt thing. Basically, the Slovakian government, I guess. You guys are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong at any point. I didn't read too deep into this story because, again, I took one look at it and went, well, that's too deep a rabbit hole for the news. Anyway, the Slovak government accused the Georgian Legion of organizing a coup against the government. That's my general understanding of the situation. And Budanov basically denied that the Georgian Legion kind of existed as an entity subordinate to HOR. So that was just kind of another thing that happened was Budanov was basically more or less accused of attempting a coup in Slovakia, and he denied it and said that the people that were supposedly involved in the coup like aren't under his command in any way. So that's the two Budanov denials. There was a meeting this week in Poland between Zelensky, Macron, and the president of Poland. I think Tusk, right? And they had like a discussion. It doesn't. I couldn't find anything concrete about like any outcomes. I guess I'll put it that way. Like usually I'll report it in the actual news if there was like an agreement made or something, but nothing that I found. They discussed stuff. I'm sure important things were said behind the scenes, but nothing public was released as a result of the talks, to my knowledge. Erlend, I think it's kind of the same situation. There was like a Nordic defense meeting this week. The Nords have been doing that lately, having like coordinated defense meetings. But it seems like this one was pretty run of the mill. Or did you find anything out?
Well, at least what I've read has been very superficial meetings about bringing Ukraine closer to NATO standards and cooperation agreements regarding that. I'm sure more things happen, but that's what the public public statements was. So yeah, we'll see.
And then okay. And then, my last bit of extra news was Russia blocked 420,000 websites last year, or 2024. So this year, it looks like they're increasing the pace of that, like based on the first month or whatever. So I don't know, like internet censorship in Russia is getting a lot more serious. It's something that I think for a long time in the Putin regime was something that they didn't really take super seriously. But it looks like they're tightening the screws on that. So that's kind of all my extra stories that I thought were worth noting. There were even more stories that I cut from the cut stuff, but I'll leave it there. So I think that's all of that stuff. Mr. Erlend, did you want to talk anything about what's been going on with you, or any stuff you've seen that was worth noting the last few weeks? Because you've been a busy bee. Maybe there's some things you've missed talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. So yeah, it's been a very busy January for me. Basically, I've been 2 trips to Ukraine, driving cars and supplies down to Ukraine for the NGO that I'm a member of, which is called Fritt Ukraina. I believe the NGO is now one of the largest European NGOs providing aid to the front lines in Ukraine. We've gotten a massive boost the last year from private businesses and individuals that have been donating very large sums of money that has been helpful for the frontline units in Ukraine. So yeah, it's been super busy because driving from Oslo to Ukraine is one thing. It's 2,000 kilometers more or less, but also preparations before and takes up a lot of time. But definitely worth it. I would be going every weekend if I could, but unfortunately I have to work as well. So yeah, I guess I can try and I have some pictures. I just need to click through them first to be sure. But yeah, the project that is going on right now is public because the receiving unit actually announced it on their Telegram not long ago. So basically, we got a request from Magyar's birds. So if you're not aware, you guys mentioned it in the news, or you mentioned it a little bit in the news, that the Magyar's birds that went from being a company unit or like small size units, company size, to a battalion. Last year it was reorganized to a regiment, but now already it's been granted the permission to form a separate brigade. So it's they need a lot of vehicles, and they asked if we could help them. They got basically 50% of the funds, and then we doubled it for 70 plus vehicles. So that should be done soon. And we got down a lot of vehicles in January, more than 40, I think. So yeah,
Nice. Well, keep up the good work, guys. And yeah, oh, look at that.
that's just some pictures from the 2 last trips. Oh, that's the same. So yeah, also want to highlight that we have basically like a sister organization or a friend or NGO that we have a very, very important collaboration with, which is called People's Self-Defense of Lviv. And it's incredibly important for the logistics and also for all the fundraising that is happening. They basically have an agreement where they try to double or match the donations, not for everything, but we will match the donations that they do. So that's it's very good, fantastic people there. And we also went to what is called the Field of Mars. Every Ukrainian large city has a Field of Mars, which basically is the military graveyard. This one is located next to the normal large communal graveyard, and it's where they bury their fallen, the ones that get carried on home on the shield, as they say. And it's very, very impactful to walk around there. This is just Lviv. Yep. Yes, Gao. I know that they are working with Bamberg NGO, if that's what you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I actually didn't want to mention anything publicly. That's why I used our private chat. But yeah, that's what I meant.
I interpreted your silence.
Yeah, no, I just saw the logo and I was like thinking, from somewhere I know that logo. And then you said Lviv, and I'm like, yeah, that's from where. And then I remembered that a couple of like 1, 2, maybe a third German NGO, like people who do a lot of crowdfunding for Ukrainian units and other stuff are also working with these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're one of the 10 largest NGOs providing aid, humanitarian aid, it's called. That can be anything from vehicles for a military unit to, supplies to a civilian hospital. So that it's a very, very big NGO.
Yeah, makes sense.
And they're doing really good work. Incredibly professional people. So yeah, I guess, I'm just a driver. I don't do much. I didn't donate millions of kroners to this. I wish I could, but I'm very happy that the people that really have the possibilities financially and also the right values actually did donate all that money. That is so important for the people that receive the aid.
But still, it's a great effort by you. You invest a lot of private time. You drove down there. You put yourself in risk of potential damage or harm by Russian attacks or whatever. So I wouldn't undervalue your stance in this. So thank you.
Well, thanks. That's kind that I feel like it's, and I'm not doing that much. I mean, it's definitely worth it, the effort, of course, but compared to Ukrainians, not doing that much.
Well, I couldn't do it. I can't drive, so I couldn't drive this week. It's the Ukraine.
Well, we all do our best. So I don't really have much more to say about this, but if you have any questions, I will try to answer.
Yeah, ask in chat if you guys have questions. Deeply security compromising questions. Alan will answer all of them. Um, Erlend, it reminds me there was an article on the Kyiv Independent, I think it was, that was about like it was by Norwegian authors. That's what piqued my interest about it. Like, if it was just some Ukrainians writing about like their opinion that Norway should, like, be donating more money to Ukraine because they're profiting a lot off of the gas, that would be one thing, because I think that's kind of obvious. Like, that's how I feel about it. But to me, it was significant that it was Ukrainian, or sorry, that was a Norwegian journalist who like came and did like a guest op-ed on the Kyiv Independent. So I was just curious, like, are those two journalists like prominent journalists, or are they just like scrubs? Like, or I shouldn't say scrubs, but like, are is it significant? Are they significant people in journalism in Norway, or are they not? Is it not as significant as maybe I'm perceiving it?
So at least one of them, I believe, is a very prominent economist, and he's been also very active in saying like Norway should give, I think it was 1,000 billion kroners to Ukraine to end the war, which is about 100 billion US dollars. So I'm very happy about increasing international attention about Norway's kind of, I would say, lack, or not necessarily lack of support, but the lack of understanding that a lot of aid right now is actually important, because the government is trying to say like, yeah, we're going to give 100 billion kroners or 170 billion kroners, but over X amount of years, which, yeah, I'm sure that's good for Ukraine to know that there's going to be longevity in the support, but what actually counts is what they get now. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to see how our government is acting. The amount of aid compared to other countries isn't bad. Like, I want to emphasize that. Like, the amount of aid compared to Germany, compared to UK, we're just 5 million people, and still we're donating about 3 billion US dollars to Ukraine this year. So it's not that bad. But the thing is, we have the opportunity to give a lot of money that Ukraine needs to fund its weapons programs right now, and we don't need to take a loan. We can just take it off the extra income that we get from the extra gas revenues to Europe because of the war. And that's why a lot of people are now saying that, hey, Norway is actually becoming a war profiteer. I'll try and pull the article up here. So
Yeah, I mean, it sort of just comes down to like Norway is like sitting on what amounts to like that pile of money in Breaking Bad. Just like imagine that. Like, Norway has that, and it's more money than you guys could ever spend in your lifetime, the 5 million of you combined. And like, if you did, it would like cause too much inflation anyway. So like, I don't know, there's a very strong argument to be made that if you guys just take several billion of that huge pile of money and just take a piece of that pie and just give it to Ukraine, because it's not really doing, it's just sitting there, earning more money and getting bigger and more unmanageable. That in the long run, like, that's going to keep inflation in Europe down. That's going to keep security costs down, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of compelling strategic and practical reasons to just take that giant pile of Breaking Bad money and just cut off a little slice of it and just be like, here you go, Ukraine, go stabilize Europe for us. And yeah, so I think that's kind of the argument here. It's not necessary. I think it sounds maybe a bit punitive to say that Norway is war profiteering, although, there's a fair case to be made for that. But I think there's also a fair case to be made that even if you don't want to chastise Norway, you can definitely say, like, it would be to their strategic benefit. It doesn't benefit them strategically to just have a pile of money that keeps getting bigger. It does strategically benefit them in the long run to have security in Europe and lower inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of, I think, the pro argument, right?
yeah, and the thing is, all this money is being piled up in our sovereign wealth fund, and right now, even though we have enormous gas and oil revenue from the sovereign wealth fund, what we earn most is actually the revenue from the shares and bonds and properties that the sovereign wealth fund invest in itself. And stability in Europe is very important for the value of the sovereign wealth fund. If we have a situation where Ukraine basically collapses and millions of refugees are pouring into Europe, financial instability will definitely be one of the consequences of that. And I'm sure it will also impact the American stock market, etc., where most of the revenue is coming from. So there's a good argument to say that one of the best investments we could do is into the Ukrainian military. So it's really frustrating to see that the arguments, in my opinion, from the government, where they're like, yeah, we can't give more because if we give more than most, then other countries will give less, etc. These have been some of the arguments stated by the prime minister, and that's absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. It's very sad to see that the government is really not proactive, which is my largest regret. It used to be one of the best nations in donations to Ukraine in 2022. I would say it was very proactive, early to give lethal aid. Also, artillery was given in the beginning. A lot of promised air defense that has been delivered since, but yeah, Norway has the means and in some way a moral responsibility to give more than the others, in my opinion, because one of the large piles of money that you can find out there is growing bigger and bigger because of the war. And it's not because of weapon sales directly only, it's because of gas that is being bought from Norway instead of Russia, because, yeah, sanctions on Russia and divestiture from the Russian energy market. So,
do you guys feel maybe a little left out because, like, the whole Baltic Sea cable thing, like, you guys aren't really like right there on the coast, and then you were like, hey, we have a Russian sabotage ship too, but then it turned out it was innocent and you had to let it go. And so are you feeling like a little left out because of all that?
I wouldn't say left out, because we have other reasons where we could have definitely been taking Russian ships into.
Sweden and Finland just released a package together, Erlend. Like,
Yes.
Where were you guys?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Denmark doesn't have any, they don't have to say anything, because I know where Denmark's heart is, Erlend.
Well, what I do want to say is that when Denmark and the Netherlands together invested into newly built CV90s for Ukraine, I think that would have been a great opportunity for Norway to match both of those nations' donation, at least to boost that procurement. But I don't know what's happening. So.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like you guys do have a very, like, I don't know, the one argument you said kind of against supporting Ukraine seems to be like, well, what if we are too nice and then everyone's like, we don't have to help Ukraine? Again, a weird argument, but I think at this point it would be fair to say to those people, well, you're maybe a little behind. Like, Sweden just gave a big military package. Finland is not only investing in military packages, they gave one this year, and relative to their GDP, they've given quite a lot, but they're also building a new explosives plant and investing like serious money in that. So, like, I don't know, it just seems like if comparing yourselves to your neighbors is an important political point that is being made about whether or not there's enough support for Ukraine by the public, like, it seems like that could be a point where you could say, well, are we really keeping up with our neighbors? You know what I mean?
I don't know how to answer that, really. So the thing is, there are things happening that isn't being written about as well. Norway is kind of similar to Sweden in many regards, that we We sometimes do a press release where we say exactly what has been given in the package, but in general, that's not really happening. So you will not find a complete account of what has been donated from Norway to Ukraine, or money that has been transferred, or etc., training that has been occurring, even though there are some statements. Sweden sometimes do the big press release, but we know that some equipment has been transferred, and then never really know what happened. So it's a little bit hard to judge exactly what's happening right now, because yes, the increase from 2024 to 2025 was kind of substantial. Like the opposition managed to pressure through a minimum amount of 35 billion kroners to Ukraine for 2025. That's a floor, so that means it can be and probably will be more through the year, because we do budget revision here. But still, it's hard to know exactly what's going on now, because we haven't seen any big press releases, etc.
Yeah, it's just I'm just looking out for you guys. It just seems like there's a lot of multilateral organizations being formed to protect the sea cables, and various meetings being held in Helsinki. And I just want to make sure you guys are,
we're in on those meetings. Like there's a new kind of I would say power group being formed, that it's the Nordic countries, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and the Baltic countries, and they now have regular meetings on the political and military level. So things have definitely happened, and also very fast in that regard. And I expect that cooperation to be stronger in the years to come, and more military exercises, more military contributions to the Baltics, etc. But I wish our government was a lot harder on Russia relations as well. We still have Russian fishing vessels that are allowed to go to port in Norway, even if it's under very strict control. It's still, I don't understand why we should just ban them. And we have a border passing with Russia up in the north that is still open, and it should just be closed, in my opinion.